Welcome to our channel. Today's story is one of silence, heartbreak, and truth. A moment frozen in time on a quiet park bench. What led her here? And what secret is she carrying? Stay with us as we uncover the raw emotion behind. A True Infidelity Story. Claire burst from the house, her hands shaking as they gripped her thin coat with desperation. The biting wind screamed through the desolate fields, yet she pressed on, her heart set on reaching the barn that loomed in the distance. The oppressive darkness enveloped her, a heavy shroud that swallowed the world whole. Only the dim flicker of the lantern outside the barn pierced the void, its glow beckoning her like a distant star, urging her to draw nearer. She came to a sudden stop before the imposing wooden door, her heart racing with such intensity that it seemed ready to explode from her chest. Within the confines of the quiet space, the gentle yet purposeful rhythm of hooves resonated, breaking the silence with an air of anticipation. The shuffling resonated in the air, a haunting prelude that suggested the horse was not merely waiting, but had somehow foreseen her approach, or perhaps felt the very essence of her being long before she appeared. Claire pushed the door open, the creak of the hinges shattering the oppressive silence that enveloped the room. Stellan loomed before her, a figure of towering strength, his piercing black eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. With a deep breath, she steeled herself and moved forward, each step measured and heavy with anticipation as she approached the horse. The air in the barn hung thick with an unspoken weight, each breath and every subtle shift laden with a meaning that eluded her grasp. "Text, you had been anticipating my arrival, hadn't you?" Her voice emerged, a fragile whisper, soft as a secret shared only with the shadows. Stellan tilted his head slightly, a subtle movement that resonated with unspoken understanding. His gaze held a depth that ensnared Claire, a silent communication that rendered her motionless, captivated and unable to tear her eyes away. After years of feeling invisible, she finally experienced the profound sensation of being truly seen and heard, a stark contrast to her time with Daniel. A tumultuous wave of emotion crashed over her, a blend of solace and danger that left her breathless. As she extended her hand, it grazed Stell's man, the heat of his body flooding her fingertips with an intoxicating warmth. An electric current surged down her spine, and in that instant, she realized her life had irrevocably transformed. The wind howled outside, a relentless force of nature, yet Claire remained oblivious to its fury. All that surrounded her dissolved into a profound stillness. Only she and Stellan remained, a burgeoning secret weaving through the shadows, like a flame ready to spark into life. Claire stood frozen in the barn, her fingers lightly brushing against Stell's mane, her eyes drifting into the endless abyss beyond. With her eyes shut tight, she drew in a deep breath, letting the rich aromas of dry hay, moist earth, and the warm breath of the world envelop her senses. The horse stood silently beside her in this serene sanctuary, and in that fleeting moment, she felt as though she had slipped away from the chaos of the world. The house stood cold and lifeless, shadows clinging to its corners, while Daniel's vacant stare pierced through the silence. A gnawing loneliness wrapped around her soul, a relentless presence that had haunted her for years. Memories crashed over her like a relentless tidal wave. Once, Claire held a fierce conviction that love possessed the power to triumph over all obstacles. Once, she and Daniel burned like fierce flames, a force of nature utterly inseparable. She remembered the moment they first crossed paths, how Daniel's quick wit and effortless charm had sent her into fits of laughter, tears cascading down her cheeks. She recalled the endless nights by the flickering flames, weaving visions of a radiant tomorrow. In those days, Daniel had vowed to stand by her side, crafting a life together that would become their most treasured dream. Yet, as the years unfurled like a forgotten scroll, those promises transformed into a distant luxury, slipping further from reach. Daniel had plunged deep into the relentless tide of his work, where meetings blurred into one another and business trips stretched endlessly, leaving Claire grasping at the fading memory of the last dinner they shared, one that wasn't punctuated by the incessant buzzing of his phone. Every time he crossed the threshold, it was as though she were welcoming an unfamiliar face into her home. He let his bag fall to the floor, wrapped her in a fleeting embrace, and then disappeared behind the glowing screen of his laptop. Claire had fought with every ounce of her being to cling to what remained. She meticulously crafted candlelit dinners, each dish a labor of love, and tried to breathe life into their once vibrant conversations. Yet, Daniel met her efforts with the same tired dismissal, his words heavy with indifference. "I'm utterly exhausted, Claire. Shall we have a conversation later?" But the moment they had long awaited never arrived. She had once clung to the hope that time would mend all wounds, yet it only served to widen the abyss that separated them. Daniel was not a villain, nor was he a monster lurking in the shadows. He wasn't unfaithful, nor was he overtly angry or neglectful, but his indifference cast a shadow over Claire's existence, making her feel as if she were slowly fading away, a mere specter haunting the halls of her own marriage. When Daniel brought Stellan home, Claire brushed it off as just another fleeting whim of his. Yet Stellan shone like a solitary beacon in the shadowy depths of Claire's otherwise bleak existence. In the depths of the horse's soulful gaze, she unearthed a tranquility that had slipped through her fingers for years. Yet there was more to it than that. Claire was haunted by the vivid recollection of her first meeting with Margaret, the enigmatic horse trainer Daniel had brought into their lives. Margaret stood tall, an imposing figure whose piercing gaze seemed to unravel the facades of those around her. An aura of quiet sorrow enveloped her, whispering of the hidden scars she carried within. Margaret was a woman of few words, but when she did choose to speak, her remarks landed with the sharpness of arrows, cutting through the truths that Claire had spent years avoiding. She vividly remembered that fateful afternoon when she and Margaret lingered outside the barn, their voices weaving a tapestry of secrets and whispers about Stellan. Margaret's eyes locked onto Claire, peeling back the layers of her very essence, as she spoke a sentence that would echo in the depths of memory for all time. Horses like Stellan possess an uncanny ability to perceive the truths that humans often deny. In the depths of solitude, an unbreakable connection can emerge, born from the very essence of loneliness. In that moment, Claire had offered nothing more than a polite smile, brushing it aside. Yet now, as she faced Stellan, Margaret's words reverberated in her mind, haunting her like a prophecy she was desperate to deny. Maybe, just maybe, Margaret had been onto something all along. It was her loneliness, the void Daniel couldn't fill, that pulled her inexorably toward Stellan, each step a silent surrender to the magnetic pull of his presence. Her fingers glided gently through Stellan's mane, the warmth radiating beneath her touch, igniting a sense of connection that transcended the moment. "You know, Stellan," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath, "sometimes I wish I could be a horse like you. No worries, no battles to fight, just pure unbridled freedom." Stellan remained silent, yet his piercing gaze spoke volumes, hinting at a deep, unspoken understanding that hung in the air between them. In that moment, a fleeting sense of relief washed over Claire, but deep within her, an unsettling truth took root. Everything was shifting, and there was no turning back. Moonlight spilled over the fields, casting an ethereal glow on the narrow path that wound its way to the barn. With each deliberate step, Claire moved forward, as if an unseen power was drawing her toward a mysterious destination, shrouded in uncertainty. The wind howled with a fierce intensity, biting through the air, yet she stood resolute, unyielding in the face of nature's wrath. Something deep within her stirred, a storm both elusive and all-consuming, as if her heart was calling her toward a truth that eluded her mind's understanding. The barn door creaked open, the hinges protesting against the silence of the night as Stellan lingered in the doorway, his deep, shadowy eyes glinting in the moonlight. In that instant, Claire sensed the very fabric of reality unraveling around her. Daniel had disappeared, leaving behind the chilling echoes of distant phone calls and the haunting solitude of endless evenings. It was just her and Stellan, an unspoken bond weaving them together, a connection that needed no words to define. "Once more you lingered in anticipation, didn't you?" she whispered, her voice a hushed echo of a stolen secret, lingering in the air like a forbidden promise. She stepped closer, her hand gliding softly over Stellan's sleek form, the dark mane of the horse cascading against her skin like a whisper of the wild. Its warm breath enveloped the air, a gentle whisper of comfort that soothed the soul, silent yet powerful, like a quiet reassurance in the dark. Her fingers danced over the sleek strands of his coat, a gentle caress that sent shivers through the air. As the heaviness in her chest began to dissipate, an unfamiliar calm washed over her, a serenity so rare it felt like a distant memory returning to her. In a heartbeat, everything changed. Claire found herself unable to grasp the force that had driven her forward. Perhaps it was the way Stell's eyes locked onto hers, a magnetic pull that drew her in, or the subtle tilt of his head, a silent acknowledgement of the electric connection sparked by her touch. Perhaps it was the tempest raging within her, a profound loneliness intertwined with an insatiable yearning, a void that echoed endlessly, one she had never managed to fill. She softly placed her hand on his strong neck, a wave of gratitude washing over her for his silent companionship, her palm absorbing the warmth radiating from him. She shut her eyes, drawing in a deep breath, yet even that inhalation trembled with uncertainty. Stellan. His name escaped her lips, not as a summons but as a whispered confession to her own heart. The horse shifted, its head dipping slightly as though acknowledging an unspoken command. He stood there, a statue of stillness, yet his presence pulsed with an uncanny awareness that made Claire feel as if he could pluck the thoughts from the depths of her mind. His gaze locked onto hers, a depth that was unyielding, offering no judgment, asking for nothing, yet resonating with an intensity that was utterly profound. Captivated, she discovered solace in the unwavering intensity of his gaze. Her chest tightened with emotion as she drew nearer, the distance between them transforming into an insurmountable void that yearned to be crossed. A heavy silence hung in the air, stretching between them, charged with an electric anticipation that seemed to pulse with every heartbeat. Her hand settled on Stell's chest, where she could feel the steady, powerful rhythm of his heart pulsing beneath her fingertips. Yet within her, a tumultuous rhythm pulsed, each beat a warning that her fragile facade might crumble at any moment. In that moment, she let go of all thoughts for the very first time. All doubts and worries dissolved into the ether, leaving behind a profound and unshakable certainty. A logic faded into silence, leaving her alone with the profound weight of her emotions, or perhaps the flicker of hope she had buried deep within for far too long. With a single tentative step and a subtle shift of her weight, Claire felt the ground beneath her shatter, plunging her into chaos. She had transformed, shedding the weary, empty shell of Claire that she once was. She was a woman engulfed by emotions that were foreign to her, each one a tempest swirling within her heart. Yet, just as the atmosphere thickened with anticipation, a faint noise shattered the enchantment. Claire recoiled as though pulled from a vivid nightmare, a faint shaft of light cutting through the shadows of the barn. In that fleeting moment, time stood still as Margaret emerged in the doorway, her piercing gaze piercing through the air, locking onto Claire with the precision of a dagger. A heavy silence enveloped them, wrapping around like a thick fog, stifling any sound that dared to break through. Silence enveloped Margaret, her lips sealed tight, but Claire felt the weight of understanding between them. She had seen everything unfold. The barn's atmosphere grew icy, a thick tension crackling in the air between them. Margaret stood frozen, her expression a vivid blend of astonishment and icy deliberation, as if she were carefully piecing together the scene that had unexpectedly unfolded before her. Claire's lips parted, a desperate longing to speak clawing at her throat, yet silence enveloped her like a shroud. Instead, she felt her breath rise into the crisp night air, a silent confession to herself, heavy with shame, guilt, and fear. A weight pressed down on her chest, but deep within, an unexpected sense of relief surged through her. At last, her secret was no longer hers to carry alone. Claire Margaret's voice sliced through the stillness, steady yet resolute. "What do you believe you're up to?" The question sliced through the silence, sharp and unyielding. Margaret entered the barn, each step deliberate, as if she were crossing into a realm where secrets lay hidden in the shadows. Claire stumbled back, her heart racing, but Stellan remained steadfast, a solid anchor amidst the chaos swirling around them. I stood at the edge of the precipice, the wind howling around me like a restless spirit. Below, the churning waves crashed against the jagged rocks, sending sprays of salt water into the air. My heart raced as I peered into the abyss, a sense of both dread and exhilaration coursing through my veins. This moment felt pivotal, as if the very fabric of my fate hung in the balance. With each breath, I could feel the weight of my choices pressing down, urging me to take a leap into the unknown. The world around me faded, leaving only the pulse of my own determination echoing in my ears. I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, no matter the cost. I don't know," Claire stammered, her voice quivering with uncertainty. Margaret halted mere feet away, her piercing gaze drilling into Claire's very soul. "Can you grasp the direction this is taking us?" Margaret inquired, her voice barely above a whisper, yet each syllable struck with the force of a hammer. "You're toying with flames, Claire. And when they ignite, there will be nothing left to reclaim. Claire found herself at a loss for words. She stood frozen, locked in a gaze with Margaret, as a tempest of emotions raged within her. Deep down, she felt the undeniable truth in Margaret's words. She grasped the weight of those words, their truth resonating deep within her. Yet, despite the awareness gnawing at her, she found herself unable to pull away. Not now, not when she had come to understand that she stood at a crossroads she had never anticipated. Margaret stood resolutely before Claire, her gaze slicing through the heavy air like a blade. The air in the barn grew heavy with an unbearable tension, wrapping around Claire like a vice, making each breath a struggle against the weight of impending dread. She found herself ensnared by Margaret's gaze, unable to escape the weight of the truth that hung in the air, and powerless to conjure any rationale that could possibly excuse her choices. Did you truly believe this would remain hidden, Claire? Margaret's voice held a steady cadence, but beneath the surface, a simmering anger bubbled, ready to erupt. Did you truly believe that no one would see the transformation within you, the shift in your gaze each time you step out of this? A barn loomed behind Claire as she stepped back, her hand clutching Stell's arm tightly, as if it were the only lifeline keeping her from spiraling into chaos. Yet Stell, the horse she had once believed understood her better than anyone, now stood in eerie silence, devoid of movement or sound, a distant presence watching everything unfold from an unreachable distance. I didn't mean to," Claire croaked, her voice barely a whisper, hoarse and trembling. She knew her words were powerless, unable to challenge the truth of what Margaret had seen. Still, she fought to articulate the tidal wave of emotion that threatened to engulf her. Like a whirlwind she couldn't escape, Margaret released a brief, piercing laugh laced with bitter irony. "Claire, this isn't a mere accident. This is a deliberate choice, and deep down, you are fully aware of your actions." Margaret's words hit Claire with the force of a physical blow. But rather than feeling regret, she found herself teetering on the brink of an abyss. A tempest raged within her, a tumult of shame, anger, and a desperate longing, all coiling tightly, ready to burst forth at any moment. "What makes you so invested?" Claire's voice erupted, sharper than she had meant, teetering on the edge of a shout. "This is my life. A tale woven with threads of suffering and solitude. You cannot begin to grasp the trials I have faced, nor the profound chasm of loneliness that echoes within me." Margaret's face betrayed no emotion, a mask of stillness that held secrets beneath its surface. "You're right, I don't know everything," she replied, her voice a gentle whisper, heavy with meaning. "But I do understand this. A dark path of self-destruction stretches before you, and its shadows reach far beyond your own soul, ensnaring everyone in your orbit." Claire stood exposed, a raw nerve in the presence of their gaze. She stood there, ensnared by Margaret's icy, penetrating stare and the eerie stillness that surrounded her. Every justification, every excuse she had clung to now echoed with a chilling emptiness. She was a woman caught in a web, overwhelmed by emotions that eluded her understanding. "Control," Claire murmured, her voice a fragile whisper as she turned her face away, her eyes glimmering in the moonlight that seeped through the cracks in the barn wall. "He's never truly grasped the depths of my being, and that's precisely why you're taking this path." Margaret edged forward, the distance between them shrinking to just a heartbeat away. "Claire, I'm not here to cast judgment, but you must understand that the path you're on won't lead to the liberation you think it will. It will only deepen the chaos that surrounds us." Claire's heart raced with the impulse to confront, to unleash a torrent of words that would make Margaret understand the depths of her struggle. But how could she ever grasp it? She rejected the harsh reality woven into Margaret's words. How could she turn a blind eye to the truth that she had stepped over a threshold from which there was no return? A jarring sound shattered the stillness, cutting through the quiet like a razor-sharp knife. Claire froze, her heart pounding as she turned sharply toward the sound. The beam of a car's headlight sliced through the night, illuminating the field with a harsh, piercing light that felt like a warning. Daniel stood at the edge of the world, the weight of his name echoing in the silence around him. Her heart clenched tightly, a chill sweeping through her as she found herself frozen, unable to move. Margaret's eyes darted to Claire, her piercing stare easing just a fraction, a fleeting spark of unexpected empathy dancing in her gaze. "Eni," Margaret began, her voice a gentle whisper, yet it carried an undeniable strength. "In this moment you stand at a crossroads. Face the consequences of your actions or allow yourself to be swallowed by the chaos that surrounds you. Claire's heart raced as Daniel's car drew near, the headlights slicing through the darkness and illuminating her ashen face against the barn wall. Uncertainty gripped her as she stood there, the weight of the moment pressing down. Words eluded her, and actions felt just out of reach. Every secret, every buried feeling, hung precariously on the edge of revelation, threatening to spill into the open. "Claire," Margaret implored, her voice steady and resolute, echoing with an intensity that demanded attention. "This is your moment to decide, and the weight of that choice rests solely on your shoulders." A choice hung in the air as Claire's gaze flickered between Margaret and Stellan, before finally settling on the blinding headlights approaching in the distance. Her mind swirled in a chaotic storm of confusion, but her heart beat with an undeniable clarity, as if it were guiding her through the tumultuous waves of uncertainty. In that fleeting moment, a chilling realization washed over her. There was no sanctuary left to flee to. The headlights pierced the thick veil of night, revealing the barn door and throwing Claire's anxious expression into stark contrast, every detail magnified in the eerie glow. She stood motionless, as if the very fabric of time had unraveled around her. Margaret stepped back, a silent invitation for Claire to advance, yet she remained rooted in place. Margaret's sharp eyes, usually cold and unyielding, now glimmered with a quiet, watchful patience, as if she were poised on the edge of anticipation, waiting for Claire to make her final decision. The car screeched to a halt, dust swirling around it as it loomed ominously outside the barn. As Daniel emerged, his towering silhouette stretched ominously beneath the blinding glare of the headlights. The car door crashed shut, echoing through the stillness, as silence enveloped the surroundings once more. He paused, his eyes darting around the shadowy landscape, before he cautiously approached the barn. "Claire, are you inside?" Daniel called, his voice steady and composed, as it always was, yet to Claire, it resonated like thunder rumbling in the distance. In the stillness of the night, she faced him, their gazes intertwining in a moment thick with unvoiced revelations. In that fleeting moment, she felt an undeniable awareness radiating from him, as if he were attuned to a hidden truth lurking just beneath the surface. It lingered in the shadows, an elusive whisper of intuition that beckoned from the depths of her mind. "I couldn't sleep," she confessed, her voice a fragile thread of steadiness, yet the quiver in her breath betrayed the turmoil within her. "I felt an urgent need to reach out and see how Stellan was doing." Daniel entered the barn, his eyes flickering between Claire and Margaret, who stood a few paces away, silent and motionless like a shadow. His brow furrowed, he scanned their faces, seeking answers in the heavy stillness that enveloped them. In the dim light of the cramped room, two women locked eyes, their silent exchange crackling with unspoken tension that hung thick in the air. "What's happening here?" he inquired, his voice laced with curiosity, his gaze piercing through the silence. Margaret's silence hung heavy in the air, and Claire sensed the unspoken words would never escape her lips. This was her moment to face the truth, to embrace the weight of everything she had fought so hard to conceal. All eyes were fixed on her, and she sensed that every path had converged into a singular, intense moment. She stood at a crossroads, the weight of her secrets pressing down like a heavy shroud. To lie once more would mean entangling herself in a web of guilt, but to confront the truth meant braving the storm of shame and pain that loomed ahead. The vulnerability she had always feared began to bubble to the surface, her eyes darting to Margaret, whose serene exterior masked a fierce challenge that dared her to take the plunge. Then it shifted to Daniel, whose anxious gaze flickered with a hint of uncertainty that she couldn't ignore. She realized that the moment for avoidance had slipped away. "Daniel," she began, her voice heavy with emotion, "I have something important to share with you." Daniel stood still, his eyes sharpening with bewilderment, but he held his tongue, his stare locked onto hers with an intensity that spoke volumes. Margaret delicately angled her face away, retreating slightly as if to offer them the sanctuary of solitude they craved. Though she remained within the confines of the barn, Claire inhaled deeply, each word she yearned to express knotting tightly in her throat. In that fleeting instant, she recalled the moment she had truly lost herself, the time her gaze met Stell's, where she discovered a solace that had always eluded her grasp. As the weight of yearning, shame, and desperation pressed down on her, she realized that silence would be her cage, locking her away from freedom if she didn't find her voice in this moment. "I felt so alone, Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling as tears cascaded down her cheeks. For what felt like an eternity, I was trapped in its grasp, and the path to liberation remained shrouded in mystery. Every moment shared with you, every connection we once held, now seems to fade into insignificance. Daniel hesitated, silence stretching between them like a taut wire. He stood motionless, his eyes locked onto hers, searching for the buried truth that lay concealed within her every word. What are you trying to convey, Claire? His voice, a gentle whisper, resonated with the weight of unspoken truths in every syllable. I've been searching for comfort in a place I know I shouldn't, she confessed, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Text, I've lost my way, Daniel. A line has been crossed, and the weight of it hangs heavy in the air, unspoken yet palpable. Daniel stepped back, his eyes widening in disbelief, as if he couldn't fathom the words that had just pierced the air. He had crossed a line. He repeated himself, his voice a gravelly whisper, barely cutting through the thick silence. Claire's chest tightened, a sensation as though an unseen force was gripping her heart in a relentless embrace. I can't quite put it into words, she confessed, her voice trembling. All I know is that I've crossed a line, and there's no turning back now. She steeled herself for the eruption of Daniel's fury, anticipating the thunderous shout or the slamming of the door. Yet he remained still. He remained frozen in place, his gaze locked onto her, his expression a chaotic swirl of feelings that eluded her understanding. At last he broke the silence, his voice a deep, weighty whisper. Do you still love me? That seemingly innocuous question tore through her fragile defenses, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. Claire's gaze locked onto him, tears cascading down her cheeks in an unrestrained flow. I'm not sure, Daniel. I'm lost in the shadows of uncertainty, yet a flicker of hope ignites within me. I yearn to rediscover what once was mine. I yearn to unravel the mystery of how we have transformed into what we are now. Margaret stood in silence, yet Claire could sense her unwavering presence, a silent sentinel observing every moment unfold. With a heavy heart, Daniel pivoted on his heel, leaving the barn behind him, silence enveloping the air like a shroud. As his silhouette dissolved into the shadows cast by the car's headlights, Claire remained rooted in place, a sense of uncertainty gripping her heart. More empty than she had ever known, Margaret drew closer, her keen gaze now imbued with an unexpected tenderness. You did the right thing, she said, her voice a low whisper yet resolute. Claire remained silent, her gaze shifting to Stellan, who lingered in the same place, his deep, dark eyes fixed on her, as if they contained the secrets to the questions she desperately sought to unravel. She moved in closer, her fingers gliding softly along his arm for what felt like the final time. In that instant, clarity washed over her like a tidal wave, and she understood the path she must take. She knew it was time to escape the barn, to break free from the shadows that had ensnared her for far too long. Outside, the moon hung high, its cold light piercing through the darkness, as Claire stepped into the night. Each step felt heavy with the weight of pain and regret, yet within her heart flickered a fragile ember of hope, a whisper that one day, she might reclaim the essence of who she truly was.